Welcome to this session of, well, it'll start in Steelman SE. My guest today is Matt Smith. This is the first time today I've seen your face, Matt.
Yeah.
And we've known each other for, it's got to be 6 months now. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Maybe not quite 6 months, but
not quite.
A couple months, yeah.
Couple months. Yeah, so you're quite the regular over on the Street Epistemology Discord practice sessions on the weekends. I'm really happy to have you out here, and I can share your wonderful SE with the public outside of Discord. So
yeah, I'm happy to be on. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with a Steelman claim. Well, actually, tell me about yourself before we do that.
It seems we're not live.
Oh.
Let me quickly check on the computer.
Well, actually, it looks like, yeah, I'm actually watching it live. On Kimberly's other phone? Yes, it's live.
Okay.
YouTube is showing.
Yes, we are. My bad. Keep going.
Okay.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay, so Matt, tell us about yourself.
Well, maybe what's relevant is I read the first book I read about street epistemology was that Impossible Conversations book. I read that maybe about 2 months ago, and in that book, they talk about Anthony Magnabosco, and he even gives some dialogue from some of the videos that he had posted on YouTube, and it got me interested. I went and I watched some of those videos, and I thought, boy, this is really something. Like, this guy's asking really powerful questions. Like, there's something going on here. And that kind of led me down a path that, I said, this is a really interesting technique. And decided I wanted to learn how to do it and how to better at it. And then sometime after that, maybe a few weeks later, I read the other book from earlier, from like 2013.
Manual for Creating
which was also interesting. Yeah. It was a kind of a different flavor, had kind of a different tone, but some of the principles were the same. So that was interesting to me. And, I've been practicing and interested in it since. So that's kind of what got me here.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to do a Steelman, and the claim, somebody can type that in. I understand you have a claim about mask wearing.
Yeah, I'd like to Steelman the position, from someone who basically says, I don't need to wear a mask to prevent transmission of COVID, or, kind of that, from that side of things,
Okay. So is the claim that masks are unnecessary to prevent the transmission, or masks are unhelpful?
No, how about the claim is just masks should not be mandatory? I think that's probably the claim.
Sure.
That
masks should not be mandatory. Excellent. Okay. I'll let somebody else type that. Thank you. So masks should not be mandatory. Now, so defining terms, when you say masks, let me see. You mean one of these? One of these that I stretch across my face
works.
And something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Not only those, also ones that are made of cloth, or basically the things you have to put on your face, that cover your nose and mouth. Yeah, that would count too.
Yeah. I like this one. If I'm wearing it actually tight enough to get it around my beard, I can't smell you smoking in front of me. This one's that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is for working around boats, around stinky chemicals that you're painting on boats. Okay, so masks should not be mandatory. So should masks be encouraged but not mandatory? Is this something where it's good, but there's a superseding reason why mandatory becomes bad?
Well, if someone wants to wear a mask, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm
Mardi
not
Gras. Party.
Sure that I'm not 100% sure they need to.
Okay.
If they want to, that's fine. But I think it's a mistake for it to be mandated, like by, say, a governor or by some local official, that kind of thing.
So there's a downside. There's a cost to requiring it. What is lost? What is the cost?
Well, the main thing is personal freedom. Like it's I think this country, the U.S., was founded on a principle of individual liberty, and I don't think that it's reasonable for a political official, even say the governor or the mayor of some city, just say that everyone has to wear masks. Now, if like a hospital wants to mandate wearing masks, that's different, right? I mean, they've got employees, and the employees have to follow the rules, or else maybe they're at risk of getting fired. But yeah,
a hospital situation also is quite atypical, and you could do professional. So I'm hearing personal freedom is the cost. It's a cost to personal freedom. Is it a cost of like actual opportunity? Am I blocked from doing a thing because I'm wearing a mask? Is there something?
Well, masks are kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say they're annoying to wear. A lot of people don't want to have to wear them. It can just be a nuisance. Like if you go somewhere and you forgot your mask, now like you're not allowed to go into the store. You have to go back home.
Yes.
I mean, it's probably rare, but I'm sure there are some people who they can't wear masks for legitimate reasons, right? Like maybe they have some medical condition that's difficult for them to breathe, or maybe they, I've heard that there are some people that maybe they have allergies or something. So, I think there are also a lot of legitimate reasons outside of just the fact that it shouldn't be mandatory for people not to wear masks.
Okay. Personal freedom. What's the other thing? I'm assuming that there are some things that should be mandated. Can you think of something where the government is completely righteous and appropriate to mandate something?
Well, sure. I mean, we don't have one now, but in the past we had a draft system.
Okay.
And I think that's reasonable. If the country decides they want to mandate military service based on some kind of lottery, I think that's okay.
Wow. So personal freedom to not have a several percent threat to my life. Yeah, so there must be some really important thing that's being served by the draft that overrides personal freedom.
Yeah, and it's the defense of the country, right? We have to be able to continue to operate as a country, and sometimes that requires that we have our people fight in wars. I don't see the mask situation as the same. I mean, it's a sickness. I don't doubt that it's going around, but I'm not sure it's that bad in the grand scheme of things. And it's not worth trading off individual liberty.
Okay. So if I were to imagine a disease that it was bad enough to overcome the question of personal freedom, would that be like the Black Death? I mean, I think I remember the Black Death killed 2/3 of everybody who was alive where it hit, stuff like that. So if masks could affect the Black Death, I don't know if it would. Would they have been a great idea then? Would that be worth mandating?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that in that case the masks would have prevented the Black Death, but I guess you're saying if they had.
Yeah, if we had something that was as virulent as the Black Death, it would seem.
I'd say
there's some line, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say if the disease is so bad that it's like a catastrophe, like the existence of the country is at risk. Then I could be persuaded that maybe it's okay to mandate it.
Okay. So it has to be something that to mandate against personal liberties, I hear the bar has to be so high that it is an existential threat at a national level.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's right.
Okay. All right. Hypothetically, what could you learn that would make you more sure that these small encroachments on personal liberty are not justified? Essentially, more sure of your position.
Well, yeah, like for example, let's say that a year from now, after the pandemic has quieted down, maybe we find out that the case fatality ratio, or the death rate, was not as high as it was feared, right? That would mean that it's actually a less serious disease than we thought, which would mean it's even doesn't make sense to trade off individual freedom against that.
Okay.
Even more so than I already believe. Also, if I were to find like maybe cases, I don't know if we have this data yet or not, but perhaps they've done some studies to see like whether masks are effective and how effective they are. And I suppose you could have results from those studies that actually say, you know what, it doesn't really matter so much that you wear masks, because most of the transmission is indoors when people, are living together or not, in public spaces. Like if we found that out, then that would certainly increase my confidence that it doesn't make sense for it to be mandatory.
Okay. All right. So how about in the other direction, the hypothetical where you could think that personal freedom wouldn't be enough to sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how to turn that turn that in reverse. So what could decrease your confidence that we should not mandate masks?
Decrease my confidence.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose the converse is true. If we found out that this COVID-19 were much worse than we realized, like maybe we didn't know it until now.
Okay.
But it'd have to be like a lot worse. The estimates I see like at the high end are like, I don't know, 0.5% or 1% kind of fatality rate. If it were 1.5, I'm not sure that would justify it. But if it were like 20 or 30%, there starts to be an argument there.
So I'm hearing this. It's the balance of risk versus personal freedom, and for you, a 1% risk for the small fraction of people who actually get infected is not worth giving up the personal freedom.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And like, I mean, I'm willing to admit that COVID's a bit worse than the flu, but 50,000 people die in a bad flu season, and no one seems to bat an eye. And like, if the media were to report on the flu season like they report on COVID, people would be just as terrified. And maybe they would be mandating masks, but like we've never mandated masks for a bad flu season. Even like in the past,
right.
There was like the Hong Kong flu, I think in the late 60s, 68 or 69 sometime. And I mean, I don't know the details, but I don't believe masks were mandated at that time. I mean, I guess I don't know for sure.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that event. I'm very familiar with the one 102 years ago, but that's the Spanish flu thing. Okay, so thank you for the conversation. I've enjoyed it. I understand that your Steelman position is that personal freedom is very, very important, probably for reasons of national security and maintaining things. I suppose there's an erosion. We didn't really talk about the why, but I suppose that losing a little bit of personal freedom, it's something that's, once it's gone, it's very, very difficult to get back. And so it has to be something that is a push against the continuity of the nation is the first place in which you should be willing to start restricting freedoms and that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I did have some questions from the audience, like how does this relate to seatbelts?
Seatbelts. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah.
so I would say that seatbelts should also not be mandatory. I mean, I think 50,000 people die a year in automobile accidents in the
Yeah,
U.S.
about that.
Today with seatbelts. I don't know what it would be. Would it be like 100,000, 150,000 without it? Like, I'm not saying people shouldn't wear seatbelts. I think they should. I just don't think it should be like illegal if you don't wear it.
Okay, how about for children?
For children, oh, like child seats, that kind of thing.
Yeah, child seats, or whether an under 16 have to be seat belted. Is that a different category?
No, I'd have to think about that. Maybe because a minor doesn't have quite the same individual adult kind of thinking, and they're kind of at the mercy of what their parents say. So if the parents, I guess I would defer to the parents in a situation like that.
Yeah. I think that's where we cross into whether the parents are allowed to take risks on behalf of the children, or to what degree they are allowed to, because in fact they are making medical choices, doing all sorts of things, so they really are proportioning risk with their children.
Yeah, I mean, you wake up in the morning and there's risks everywhere.
Indeed. Okay, well, thank you very much. I think we took about 17 minutes on that, so that's about perfect if we're going to do 3 things today. I appreciate that one. So we have 2 other things. You were going to investigate one of my claims, and I was going to investigate one of yours. Which would you like to do next?
Why don't we do your claim? Oh, there's one more question.
Oh, there's one more question from the audience. Yes, sorry. Is it possible for a temporary mandate to be a benefit to society?
A benefit to society. I suppose that really depends on who's deciding if it's a benefit to society. And
so this is
values they have, right?
This is that how much do you weight each value question as to whether you decide a benefit. So yeah, I see that that's a bit open-ended.
Yeah.
And Dadas, you say that we are not using the term Steelman properly. You might well be correct. I'm totally willing to talk about that. Sorry, so I lost track. Was I going to examine your claim, or you mine next?
No, you were gonna give a claim, and I was gonna examine it. Then we do my claim last.
Good. So we're gonna go into reverse SE. Hi there. So let me turn off that claim until we get one defined. In response to Dadas not using the term Steelman properly, I say that Steelman has multiple meanings. In my case, I'm specifically using it for holding trying to Steelman a position you don't hold. And then there's another term in which we use Steelman, which I'll just call reflecting back, when you're saying back what you heard them say. And that's also often called Steelman, but I needed a word and I wanted to only use one word per idea. So I ask you to accept my my use of the term in that case. Yeah. Oh, okay, good. So yes, I apparently put this one up unlisted rather than public. Get a couple of weeks of doing things in the park and I lose all of my remembering of homework. Yes. Okay. So reverse SE. You saw a list of claims that I offered in the live show text, and I think you chose gender, sexuality, that sort of thing.
Yeah, gender, feminism, yeah.
Okay.
Any of those, yeah, whatever you think.
So I'm just going to start talking about gender, and as soon as I make a claim that you want to jump on, grab it.
Okay.
So I'll start by saying a simple definitional claim that I think gender is a term that in the modern decade has a meaning distinct from sex. And for me, I see gender as defined as those aspects that are usually associated with sex or correlated with sex that are external and visible.
Okay.
And as a society, we require people to hide their sex. That's the rules of clothing, means you have to hide all your genitalia and all of the secondary sexual characteristics and things. And as a result, we kind of hold, I think a lot of people hold like there's an honesty thing. If the carpet doesn't match the drapes, they're annoyed. If I were to present myself as something that you would expect me to have X in my pants, and I don't have the same X in my pants, that somebody would think I was being dishonest. Maybe trying to trap them into something.
I want to pause and so I think the very first thing you said is maybe the claim that I'm interested in. I think you said that gender is different from sex, and especially in the modern, in the past 10 years, like our understanding of
when I was
born than sex.
In my first decades or so, that was not the case. I think gender and sex meant the same thing. And now if I look in gender in a dictionary, I think I'll see something as a synonym of sex or this other thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to investigate that claim. So I think you're saying today, in our society, we treat sex and gender as different things. Would that be a fair restatement of what you're saying?
Yeah. Related, distinct things.
Related but distinct. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me understand. Oh, go ahead.
Just for the record, I'm really pro-trans and pro-queer. So I'm not trying to hide my position on that at all.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So what like I'm just trying to understand, like, how is it different than it used to be? Like you said, maybe when you were younger, it wasn't this way, and I'd like how do you think it's changed? How was it in the old days, and how is it now?
I think in 1970, if I referred to your gender or I referred to your sex, I could be either listing your actual genitalia, or I could be listing where you fall in like the male or female.
Okay.
Now, sex also meant the actual act of procreation, coitus, or other kinds.
Yeah. As a verb.
Sex as the verb. But holding that one aside, sex as a noun or sex as a descriptor is what I'm talking about relative to gender. Gender never meant banging. Sex did.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask a question. Maybe this will help clarify it for me. If I don't know if you have a position on this, but if you're filling out like a form,
yes,
say for Social Security or something, and they ask, they want to know whether you're male or female. Do you think that should say sex, or do you think that should say gender?
Depends on why they're asking.
Just for categorization purposes, demographics or whatever.
Okay.
And also for identification,
Yeah. For me, it's real easy because I fit in the mainstream of the cis world. In that my carpet does match my drapes, and as far as gender presentation and everything else, that also fits what I understand of my chromosomes and my hardware. So for me, it's easy. I guess the question is, if I were on a job application, you're going to get my gender. If I'm writing to my doctor, you're going to get my sex.
Job application, gender, and what was the other example? Where you would
if I'm writing a medical history for my doctor, I'm going to put down sex, and I would probably also put asterisks if my gender was not exactly correlated with my sex. I would fill that in for my doctor. But if you're hiring me, it's none of your damn business.
So how confident are you that gender and sex are different concepts, though related, would you say?
I am very, very confident. I'm going to say 4 sigma confident that there is a significant fraction of people who use the term in the way that I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that
whether it's a majority or something, I don't know. I don't know. I'm actually expecting it would follow along like political lines, whether or not you would agree with this. That I'm expecting that people on the left are generally going to agree with me, and that there's a fraction of people on the right who are generally going to disagree with me, and that's a smear. I think especially theists, maybe much more than right left or red blue. I think it may theist versus non-religious would have a strong resistance.
I'm curious, why do you think it is that people's thinking has changed? Like if I would have asked you, say, in 1980, sounds like you may not have held this claim.
Oh, that's certainly true. Yeah, I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian missionary school, and was very Republican, and I probably thought Nixon was good if I thought so. I'm not sure if I had an opinion on Nixon. I'm not that old, but you see where I'm headed. When I got into my 20s, my head's moved a long way away from that over a couple of decades.
Okay. And you think that so you're saying if I understand you right, you grew up fairly conservative, fundamentalist, so
yes,
that wasn't really something you were exposed to. But once you kind of went out into the world and you saw people as they were, you understood that maybe it wasn't so simple. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and for my own personal path, I'm both bisexual and poly, so it was probably because I recognized myself as queer and started interacting with the queer community and started understanding the perspective of queer people, and that's a very strong convincer. If you hang around with a bunch of queer people, you'll be very how to say, encouraging toward their position. Not sure.
Hey,
empathetic.
Yeah, someone asked a question, which I kind of I'm wondering the same thing. Like, how you say that sex and gender are not quite the same thing, though they're related. Could you maybe explain a little bit how they differ or how they could differ? Maybe that would help.
Cisgender, they're the same.
Okay.
And cis just means the normal or around the norm or something like that. The mainstream, if you will. And then if you are transgender, then you are your sex and your gender assigned at birth don't strongly correlate. And then of course we have like the about 1 in 2,000 people that have they were born with medical conditions that put them outside of that binary standard. I think I think medically they're called intersex. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure about all of these terms, and what's really strange as far as trans terms over the last couple of decades is a lot of terms that were the standard appropriate terms became bad terms. So it's some people are offended by the term intersex, and yet I think it's the medical term. So I'm confused about whether it's annoying to people if I say that, if I mention that, or if I should come up with a better word. I'm all for opening better words. I don't want to keep words in my vocabulary that have come to mean bad things.
Do you think that this view that you have about the relationship between sex and gender and the fact that they differ somewhat, is this a view that's important to you personally? Is it something that if you like you wouldn't be quite as good a person if you didn't hold it, you think?
I think the good of me being a person, I think I could be a completely good person without having an opinion about this, as long as I was supportive and kind to people who express it differently than myself. If I could say, okay, I don't mind about your gender. I don't care. I don't understand. I don't this, I don't that, whatever. And sure, I'll call you by whatever pronoun. Well, I think you've done everything that's necessary to be a good person. I think you're being good and kind at that point. For me, I think it's a lot easier if I actually believe a thing. to actually do it.
Mhm.
And I really do think that trans women aren't exactly the same as cis women, but for every choice I want to make about them, I want to treat them the
Mhm.
same.
Mm.
And I'm specifically
Okay.
not a sporting body or any of those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you think? Like, what would be your view on someone maybe who doesn't hold the claim that you do, who thinks that basically
Mhm.
sex and gender are the same thing, and people
Yeah.
these days have gotten really confused about it?
Okay, so there's one category of people who would disagree that I've seen, and that's people who are stuck on a word has an objective meaning or a single meaning.
Hmm.
And I can't tell whether that's something that they're stuck on or if that's just the last argument that they came to.
Mm.
So some people are going to say, no, that's the way it is. My mother would be in this category. No, God made two genders, and you're the author of confusion if you don't believe that it's just A or B, and there are no.
Mm.
God is not the author of confusion, so you're of the devil if you're
Yeah.
even talking about this. But she's
Well,
not incapable of understanding the term. She's an intelligent person, but she's stuck in a mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. What if hypothetically you met someone who said, I'm willing to entertain that there are people who have, three sex chromosomes or they're intersex,
Oh, XXY?
not everyone
Yeah, sure.
quite fits. Yeah, like they understand that that's a reality, but they're maybe not quite ready to say that means that, gender and sex are different.
Right. My mother would never accept that gender and sex are different, for
But
example.
might she accept that there are people who don't fit quite neatly into a male or female category?
No, she wouldn't, because she's stuck in a theological mindset of
Right.
it's binary, and if you challenge that, I'm just going to say you're, Satan. It's almost the church lady.
Yeah.
But she's an extreme example. I don't want to make her the
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to get like
typical.
a more typical, more common example, which might be someone who says, yeah, people can have XXY or they can, be hermaphroditic, right? But
Okay.
but then they don't understand the link between that and why gender is different than the sex organs they have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let me narrow it down all the way down to somebody who just chooses. We're not going to talk about any medical unusuals. We're not going to. I'm going to talk about a particular kind of trans. Not that I'm trying to subset them, but one who has none of these other. Well, I could see it if kind ofs.
Mm.
So my friend in his late 30s came to the realization that he would be much more comfortable in life as a she. And I've known this friend for many more years as Benjamin, and now I know her as Jami. Now, when was she a she? To me, as soon as she said so. As soon as I heard, it's like, yes, sure, you're a she, you're a she. Absolutely. I don't care if you're wearing guys' clothes. I'm not even care whether you've shaved your beard today. You're a she. But that's where I am, because I'm going to bend over backwards. Now, for other people, they're going to say, no, that doesn't count. Nope. Maybe you're something with an asterisk because you haven't somethinged. Now, for some people, that something is done some kind of medical intervention to make a change. Another one might be some kind of irreversible medical intervention to make a change.
Yeah,
those are two different
like a sex
areas.
Operation.
Yeah. And then there's some people that say, no, you were born this gender and I will never, ever accept that you are anything else because you are, for whatever reason, subverting the natural way or subverting God's way or subverting my expectations about how things are. And maybe you're trying to do something bad and not being honest.
Do something bad, not being honest. Right. Yeah. Okay. So let me just sharpen up that one example, and then maybe just ask a couple questions, and maybe that's where I'll end it. So let's take this example of this person that you know, who you knew for many years as I guess identified as a male, and she decided she would identify as a female, right? And you said the moment that she said that, in your eyes, she was female. Although I'm assuming like there was no, sex organ operation involved, right? So like her sex didn't change,
Right.
but you would say her gender did, right?
As soon as I knew, what I knew was I hadn't seen her in a few months, and she'd lost a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And had a different haircut, and had shaved her beard. And then she told me, and that's, for me, that's like, oh, you told me, boom, there I am. But I'm already way in the ally camp, so it's easy to convince me.
Yeah.
And then if the week after she said, no, I've decided, no, I'm a male, I say, then you're he. I'm flexible. It doesn't matter to me.
I'd like to understand, are there any limitations to this? So like, if I don't know, I guess you'd say I'd present as a male, and if I decided tomorrow that I'm a female, I guess you would accept that. Like,
yes, I have another friend who's fluid, and I've been told a few months ago I was told was female. She told me she was female, and said, and in a different time, I might tell you a different thing. And I said, okay. And I said, and if I misgender you, please know I have a suck memory sometimes, and it's not personal. Something like that. The reason why I'm very flexible in it, one of the reasons I should say, is because I want to treat people the same, regardless of my opinion of their gender, or their opinion of their gender, or your opinion of their gender. I want to treat them the same. So why do I give a crap about what you call that gender thing that I'm not supposed to use as a discriminating factor? Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I think I see what you're saying, right? You want to take people at their word and address them the way that they like to be. I guess.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering though is, like, in cases where it's difficult, like, probably a lot of people go around in the course of their day, and they see people, and their brain just assumes male or female for most people, and could be.
And you're right, 95% of the time, at least.
Yeah. So yeah, is it like, do you think it would be? Do you think it would be wrong, like morally wrong or ethically wrong, if someone, somehow objectively looked male but said that they were female, and someone referred to them like the way that they would naturally do in the course of conversation because they're just used to speaking that way?
Okay, so if they misgendered somebody, called them by a gender they prefer not to be called. That's what I'm just going to say misgender means.
Okay.
And so if they misgender somebody accidentally, is so much less of an issue, and I actually should be common and expected, especially if there's an ambiguity in the question.
Okay.
I don't get that ambiguity myself. But I know a lot of people who are ambiguous, and that works fine. And I think if you are ambiguous, you should have a thick skin as to people making errors. And then there's this other kind where, after they've been corrected, like, enough that they should clearly know.
Yeah.
If they slip up every once in a while, that's probably just let people be. But if there's going to be some people who will say, no, my parents told me never to be dishonest, and I honestly think you're a this gender. Well, that's when you're starting to be really fucking rude.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I'll leave it there. I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. All right, so there was a couple questions. Let's see. Reed asked, is hardware versus software a useful analogy for sex versus gender? I've heard that analogy given to me by trans folks, and I'm going to take them at their word on that one. The thing is, I don't innately get it. I don't innately understand. I mostly just accept that what they present is going on inside themselves is going on inside themselves. A little like, I don't need you to prove that your favorite ice cream is vanilla if you just tell me. I'll just accept that. So that's a bit where I am. I don't innately get it. And I have heard that analogy. So yeah, I'm going to say that several of my trans friends have said that. I think several of my trans friends would agree that this is a good analogy.
Does it mean does it mean you don't know what's running, what OS is running on that machine without looking into it?
I don't know about that part of the analogy. I'm not sure I'd have the ability to understand what OS is running in somebody's head. I almost would say that like a strong theist versus a strong atheist is a bit of an OS switch. That's like reloading. That's as different as Windows versus Linux. Yeah. Is there harm in accepting someone's gender identity? If the question is to me, I say no at all. But what do you think, Matt?
Oh, what do I think? I don't know. I haven't thought so much about this topic. Like, I guess basic politeness, if someone wants to be called this or that, I would generally oblige. I do wonder, this isn't what we talked about. I do wonder in the case of like younger kids, especially kids in the teenage years that are real impressionable and subject to peer pressure, if there isn't an element of like social contagion that is going on, that people feel maybe like it's good to, have to question your gender because it means maybe you'll get some attention or your friends will treat you specially or something. I suspect that there may be some of that going on. It seems less likely that that would be going on if someone's, say, 39, like you said your friend was or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
I think she's 42 now. Anyway.
42, okay.
I think she's 42 now.
Okay.
She's well into the process. She just had her breasts installed.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead.
So, like, I wonder a bit about that. In general, if someone says, please call me this, I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna be mean to someone. I hope they wouldn't be offended if I got it wrong, because I'm likely to, because I'm not used to that. I probably wouldn't be doing it deliberately.
Yeah. And in Jami's case, she's an engineer, and her thing is she doesn't want to tell people what pronouns to use. So if you say what pronouns, whatever comes to you, it's no problem.
Okay. That's actually really nice.
She has a very thick skin about it.
Yeah.
And she wants the data, so she has to not try to jiggle the test.
Yeah.
By forcing it, so she knows she's not going to get any good data from me.
Yeah. Part of the one thing I do think that I've pushed back a little bit on is there's kind of a mindset sometimes that goes on where it's like someone has this view where like I'm going to be offended about the smallest thing you do. Like if you say one wrong word, I'm going to be offended, and then it's going to be a problem. And I don't really think that's a good worldview to have. I like the fact that your friend definitely doesn't do that. She has a real thick skin about it. But I don't. It's not like a game to see who can be the most offended. This is not like a good way to go about.
I agree. That's very polarizing. Okay, so the third thing that we were going to maybe do If have we gone down this one sufficiently? Are we done?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So the third thing we were going to do would be some vanilla SE, where I ask you.
Yeah, I'm looking over my
for your
claims to
plan.
see which one
Yeah.
one would be a good one. I think I'll go with this one. I'll say we don't have to talk about all three, but I'm going to say Google, Amazon, and Facebook should be broken up because they violate antitrust
Okay.
laws.
And you're not implying that they're currently together. You're saying that
No.
individually, Google should be broken up, Facebook should be broken up, Amazon should be broken up. Okay.
Yep.
And what would broken up look like?
Well, so let's take the case of Google. Google has a lot of different businesses.
Okay.
So they have YouTube. I think YouTube should be split from Google. It used to be its own company before Google bought them. Google also has, they have a search business. They also have an email business. I think their email business should be split from their search business. They also have they have like increasingly large number of other platforms. Like they have this Google Classroom, which maybe is at the point that it should be split up from Google proper. I guess I'd be of the view maybe Google could continue to exist as a search engine that combines maybe advertising, and that should be like the core business that would stay as Google.
Okay. So in this breakup, so my understanding with Google is that there's a parent company called Alphabet that owns Google and owns YouTube, and also and that there's, whether you call this Google or Alphabet at the top is just probably what you write on, like the forms of the stock market. There's still, I think Alphabet is still fully under the control of Larry and Sergey, and I think there's another officer, but okay. So there's this relatively small board that controls the whole thing. And there are separate companies now for a lot of these things. What would it mean to break YouTube? Let's just say take YouTube out of Google. Just as one little chunk of what we're going to talk about. So what would it look like to take YouTube out of Google? Does that mean that Larry and Sergey and the other people that own most of Alphabet or have high stakes in Alphabet, they have to not own these other pieces? Or is it that one doesn't control the other? What is it?
No, it'd be like Alphabet would not be able to own that operating company. It would have to divest it, and it would become its own operating company with its own financials and an independent board and independent officers who are not part of Alphabet or Google or any part of that old business. Same would be true with, say, Gmail. Same would be true with like Google Classroom or the apps that people use, like Google Docs, say.
Okay, let's imagine this is a world that so isn't, that I own a big chunk of Google stock or Alphabet stock right now.
Yeah.
Would I be granted? Let's say I own 1% of Google. Wow, that's a hell of a dream. Would I be granted 1% of each of the companies that would be broken up?
Yeah, the way it usually works. So let's say you own 1% of Alphabet. I think that's the company that you can buy as a publicly traded company.
That makes sense.
So in principle, that holding that you have matches the percentage value of the different companies underneath it, right? So if Google is forced to split out YouTube and spin it off, then what would happen is, you could do it two ways, where stockholders would just get equivalent stock in YouTube once it's a separate company, but it would be like two separate stocks now. Or if they
so I'd have 1% of YouTube and 1% of Google, or something.
No,
or
not
1%
necessarily.
of
Depends
YouTube and each of the 1% of each of everything. If I started with 1% of Alphabet.
No, it would be. It's not that simple, because it depends how big a portion of Google YouTube is right now. So like YouTube might be 10% of Google right now. So the point is, the financials, you can make someone whole. You can make it so no one will lose money, right? The day that the spinoff happens, they can either exchange stock and continue to hold only Alphabet, or they could get some equivalent stock in YouTube, and they could choose how to do that.
Okay, so if on the day that we split off YouTube, I checked the box, I don't want to own any YouTube, I would only want to own Alphabet. Does that mean now I own more fractional of what Alphabet is left?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
what if nobody signs on? Well, I'm not sure. See, I guess for me to sign off on that, somebody else has to want to sign the other direction and say, I'd like to disproportionately own YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, all these companies are publicly traded, so people are always buying and selling. So it's a liquid market.
Okay. Would it be permitted for me to own the same fraction of stock in each of the companies that were broken out?
Sure. Like, let's take the example of Sergey. Is it Brin? I think Sergey Brin.
Sergey.
Let's say right now he owns 10% of Alphabet, and say they have to divest YouTube, and say he chooses to keep stock in YouTube. Maybe he does, but now he's just a shareholder. Now I don't know like the details of the antitrust legislation, but maybe it's like they can't even own stock in competing companies. Like I don't know how that would work.
I think if you're talking about having a near controlling interest, that you'd have to make the guys who have controlling interest no longer have controlling interest over the whole set. To make the splitting have teeth. I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and
I think
really
we went through this with the Baby Bells, the AT&T breakup back in the 90s, 80s. I forget. Okay. So what is the downside of allowing these monopolies? Okay. I guess I want to make a distinction between monopolies that are formed by legislation and monopolies that grow on their own. Like utilities are a monopoly that's formed by legislation, and maybe actually a good idea. Like I only have the option of buying power from one company wherever I live.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, there are some natural monopolies in the world. So like utilities are a classic example because it takes so much money to do the infrastructure. To run wires to every house for like telephone companies or for electric companies. So I'm okay having monopolies, but they have to be regulated, right? And most states have utility regulating bodies that do this. And so, but we don't have any such thing for Google right now. It's not regulated in any way. I mean, it's subject to the laws. Just
so
like
Google is an unregulated. Sorry, I'm stepping on you.
Yeah. I'd say Google is an unregulated monopoly. I think that's fair.
Okay. What is the harm of an unregulated monopoly?
Oh, it's a huge harm to customers, right? Because they no longer have any kind of choice in the market. So I think at least in the US, Google has over 90% of the search market, right? Which means if you are looking to advertise on the search engine, you basically have one option, which means Google sets the terms. So that's not good for that.
Okay. It's a lack of competition leading to gougey kind of pricing, maybe? Or maybe if they don't like me because I don't use the right pronouns, they might get all left-wing Jose and say I am not allowed to advertise on the service because I'm deplorable.
Yeah, there is that dynamic too, where because they're so large, they get to kind of set the agenda. And also, it's not, I'd be remiss unless I also said part of the problem is that everyone uses the internet, and basically everyone uses Google to find information. So this is like a huge power that they have, right? And people have to realize this.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, say in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when they started doing antitrust breakups, mostly of the railroad companies, the railroads used to come into a city. Yeah, Standard Oil. They would come into a city, right? The railroad would build a hotel. They would own the hotel. They would build the station. They own the station. They would build the bar, the saloon. They would build all these things. They would own all the land. And so, you can't let one company buy up the whole economy, a city, right? that's not, you can't have effective competition, you know. And if you were like an independent hotel that wanted to set up shop, they could like, you know, they're big enough they could afford to reduce the rates for an overnight stay to the point that you can't stay in business, right? And there's evidence that Google does this. And there, you know, there have been, like, no one is going to start a competing video service given that YouTube is as big as it is right now. No one is going to start a competing search engine, or at least not that is going to do very well, right? Like, and there have been studies that I think Stanford has done that has shown that this has actually happened, where there's like this set of industries around Google that are basically fallow. You know, no one will invest in companies that might compete with Google.
I see. Yeah, I think it's a real shame that the next one I can think of is Bing, another monopoly from Microsoft. The things that you say that are bad in Google doing them, I find have been bad Microsoft doing them a long time. So I might throw Microsoft on your stack of things, but I don't need to add to your claim. Yeah. I haven't tried Bing enough to actually have formed an opinion. I don't know. Okay, so let's see. Useful in this discussion. Sure. Okay. How do you define the line where action is appropriate to take? How close to a perfect? I mean, you would certainly agree that a perfect monopoly that literally, like the railroad coming in, just has that. We got to nip that in the bud right away. When did, for example, Google cross the line for you? When did they get big enough that this was a good idea?
I'm not sure. I didn't think much of it when they started their email service. I was one of the first adopters of it, actually, because I thought it was nice, and I didn't really think about what I was trading off at the time. But I would say maybe after they acquired YouTube, that should have been like a warning sign. Because I don't know if you remember, but before they bought YouTube, they tried to do their own Google Video service, and it didn't really take. And they decided, well, I guess we can't compete, so we're just going to buy YouTube. So I think that was definitely by that point, I would say it was a problem, and it's gotten worse now. I mean, now they, you know, so many people are doing online learning, and they have Google Classroom. They have the online docs, although I guess there is a competitor in Microsoft with that, so maybe it's not so bad in the document spreadsheet case. You know, I guess but certainly overall Google, and Amazon's even worse, right? I mean, now they have their own delivery trucks. Yeah, they compete with UPS now, and UPS can't compete with them because, you know, Amazon knows who's ordering the packages and where they're going. So they have, it's like a vertically integrated monopoly that UPS can't compete against. You know, like in Europe, with Amazon, just one quick example, I think in France, they were fined because, you know, what Amazon does is they have a marketplace, but they also make their own products, Amazon Basics, right?
Yeah.
And so they'll use their data. They'll say, okay, AA batteries. People will buy 8 AA batteries, and they should be $3. What we're going to do is we're going to sell our own product that is $2.50, and we're going to put it on the market, and we know people will buy it, right? And that's not fair. Like, you can't have a marketplace and also sell products on the marketplace knowing the behavior of the market, right? It's not a fair market.
Oh, so if you're setting up a marketplace, you shouldn't also be allowed to compete in that marketplace because you have an informational advantage and can just pick off whoever has been essentially your partner or not sure if it's
Yes.
a partner or a client, or there's a customer and there's a supplier relationship, and they're able to pick and choose which of those they want to step in and try to grab, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I think that's a clear example of a monopoly problem.
Okay. All right then. What I'm gonna run my hypotheticals different than I usually would. In this case, instead of confidence, I'd say, what would make you move to declare monopoly is appropriate? I'm gonna say, declare an antitrust action. That's what we do when we have the monopoly. We make an antitrust action. What would have you declare an antitrust action is required or necessary earlier than you do now?
In other words, you're asking me like what could have happened hypothetically that would have made me say this claim 2 years ago?
Yeah, maybe. Like, for example, in the case of Google, you set a line in the sand at the time they acquired YouTube. That was about the place where you were pretty sure antitrust action was there. What could you learn that would make you want to move that to even significantly sooner?
Oh yeah, so like, and this may actually be the case because I guess now there's a lawsuit against them from a bunch of attorneys general, but like they may have evidence that says that even before they bought YouTube, Google was going around making sure to buy up any possible competitors in the search advertising business, perhaps, or making sure that companies that maybe did online email were not a threat to them, maybe by buying them out and just taking the people, or maybe just by crushing them somehow. Like if they have evidence of that, then I certainly think that it should have been sooner.
Okay.
That they have an antitrust action enforced.
A couple of years back, Elon's made the claim that 90 or 99% of what you heard in public about batteries was bullshit. And they had an internal list of everybody that they knew about that was working on batteries. And they had 3 stars, they have a pretty good something. 4-star means that they we should be working with them, and 5-star means that they have something better than we have. And what I've seen is they picked up like Maxwell Technologies with a dry thing, and they've purchased a bunch of robot manufacturers. They've picked up a bunch of companies that have battery technologies. They're funding a bunch of battery research in collaboration with a couple of different universities. Okay.
Right.
When do they cross into having monopoly on battery tech that we should do something about?
I've thought about that, actually. Yeah, I've thought about that because I was thinking about this claim. It's possible that they've already crossed it. I'm not sure. No, they're definitely going down a vertical
It's hard to see exactly what their tech is. They're very close to the chest about it.
One thing in defense of Tesla, say, is maybe that at least what they say publicly is that they welcome competition, right? Like if some other company like Ford wants to go and build a battery factory, say, great, go build a battery factory and start making your batteries and make cars that compete with us. Now, I do think there is a bit of a problem, though, because if say, I don't know if this is the case, but hypothetically, like if Tesla bought out all of the companies that designed robots for manufacturing batteries and everyone else had to build them from scratch, or if somehow they hired like all the best minds in battery research and no one else
they did that.
Get those people. Yeah, so
that they have done in more than just batteries.
Yeah. So I don't know, like you'd have to do an investigation and really see if it's a clear case. I admit I can't. In hindsight, it's easy to know that's going on at the moment, it's always like a where do you draw the line kind of thing, and I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah. So Scott asks, are court cases useful in finding a good gauge for finding the line?
Yeah, I think they are, because like in order to file a court case like the one that's going on now with the state's attorneys general, yeah, they have to do this investigation, and it goes on for months, and they'll request documents from the company, and they'll get evidence from other companies that were bought out, or they'll get emails, that were sent that say things that mean things, and they can establish evidence. So yeah, I do think court cases are a great way to figure it out, but someone has to think about filing the lawsuit,
Sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of money has to flow around somewhere. Court is expensive. It's all those suits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Suits must be terribly expensive. I don't understand. Apparently wool is just like like Ferraris or something.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the hypothetical in the other direction I want to end with is what could lead you to be a lot more patient before calling antitrust? Giving them a lot more room before you said it was bad.
Yeah, I guess there are, in theory, some competitors to Google, like DuckDuckGo is another search engine, and Quant is a third one. Like maybe if these search engines like suddenly start taking a significant market share, maybe there's an argument there. If there's a competitor to Google's Gmail product, say, besides Microsoft's, that like I would need to see evidence of actual competition and a more fair marketplace, So like in the case of Amazon, say, I would need to see evidence that like somehow their marketplace is firewalled from their businesses that actually make brand products, or decide. And I would want to see some, in the case of Amazon, I want to see some transparency. Like if I'm a person who wants to sell on Amazon, how do I know that Amazon is going to list my product over theirs? Right? I have no ability to know that, right? It's like opaque. There's no requirements that they disclose how the marketplace works, I don't think.
You could sample it. You wouldn't know about the future, but you could know about the past, because you could go create 1,000 sock accounts and go search for your product.
Yeah, I suppose you could do that, but you shouldn't have to do that. Right? You should know how it works, I think. I mean, we know how NASDAQ works, right? We know how.
Sure. Yeah, we wouldn't allow a stock market to compete in buying and selling stock. We wouldn't allow the market themselves. That we would call that like insider trading almost.
Yeah, right. They have information that not everyone else has.
Okay, so I'm assuming then that your preference in terms of Amazon would be to break apart their Amazon Basics, I guess their house brands.
Yeah. They have Amazon Basics. They also have now in the U.S. at least, they have basically a delivery company with Amazon vans driving around delivering stuff. I suspect that is not going to be kosher with antitrust.
Okay, so they would have to split delivery out of the.
Yeah.
Split delivery out of the setup. So okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's precedent for this. Like in the late 40s or early 50s, it used to be that the way movies were made, you had the studios. The studios had their own actors that they had as employees. They had their own distribution, and then they owned the theaters, right? And the U.S. government stepped in and said, no, this is not a competitive marketplace. We're going to have production. You can have production studios. We're going to have distribution that's separate, and we're going to have independent movie theaters. And they're going to be three different industries, right? That's worked pretty well for the past 60, 70 years.
Yeah, I think I think there is a similar situation with dealerships and car manufacturers. When the dealership laws got written in, that essentially created de facto monopolies in zones.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think what it effectively did was prevented any new car companies for almost all of my life that started in the U.S. If any new car companies wanted to start, they had to start somewhere else and then penetrate the U.S. market.
Yeah. And then they had to have a dealership network. I mean, that's crazy hard. No.
Yeah. It was kind of nuts, and it made sense at one point, but now it's just a dinosaur waiting to die, in my opinion. But in any case, thank you very much for this conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? And then I want to turn it over. I think we want to talk about tomorrow's. I think we're going to talk about Michael Meade tomorrow. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so Matt, do you have anything further to add before I outro us?
No. I appreciate the invite. I enjoyed this time we had, and I hope to continue to see everyone practicing and
yes,
use street epistemology.
Yes. So today was a bit of a sample of what kind of things go on in our SE practice on the weekends on the Street Epistemology Discord. You too can come talk to me and Matt and lots of other really quality people in terms of street epistemology. A lot of great street epistemologists. Okay, let's see. My remote went silent and back up. Tomorrow, my guest is Michael Meade.
Hi everyone, my name's Michael, and I just want to say a quick hello.
And I'm not hearing him.
And to invite you to an event that I'll be running on Saturday, 9 January, between 1 and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah, I see Michael speaking, and I don't hear him.
And I'll be sharing.
So I'm going to pop back over to clean, and we might try that again. For the moment, I'm going to do the rest of the outro, and then if I get a chance that I can hear Michael's description, I'll play it. And otherwise, I'll just tell you, tomorrow I'm meeting with Michael Meade, who about a week after I'll be on a panel with him. He'll be teaching a course on emotional intelligence and street epistemology on what for me will be the 9th. Here we go.
Hi everyone, my name's Michael, and I just want to say a quick hello and to invite you to an event that I'll be running on Saturday, 9 January, between 1 and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's called an Introduction to Emotional Intelligence, and I'll be sharing some helpful tools that have improved my own SE conversations, and they've also helped me to incorporate SE into my everyday life in a positive way. So why not get a great start to 2021 by joining us as we take a deep dive into the impact that our behaviours can have on our interactions with the people around us. I hope to see you there. In the meantime, stay safe and have a happy new year.
So that's tomorrow's show. Yes, Scott, you are so right. I should say the date and the time of practices. We operate on GMT on as far as this when we do our practices. On Saturday, 1800 GMT is our ordinary Saturday weekly practice. For me, that's 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. That's fine. Then we have the Australia-friendly practice, which happens at midnight GMT, which for me is Saturday, and for the people in Australia is Sunday morning. And then we have the Europe-friendly practice on Sunday at 1600 GMT, which is actually 8 o'clock in the morning for me in Pacific time on Sunday. That's both on Sunday. In any case, those are our 3 scheduled practices. We are also in the process of training up several additional co-hosts because there have been several requests for us to have some practice events during the week. And we're just training up to be able to staff those. So thanks for that. Here are 5 of my favorite street epistemology related channels. amongst a list of about 15 that you'll find if you go to my YouTube page. If you're really into this process of street epistemology, this method, this way of conversing, my favorite place for you to go is streetepistemology.com, where you have links to the Discord. Oh, by the way, links to the Discord also in the doobly-doo if you want to come play with us. And so you have the Discord and the Facebook group and lots of resources and just everything that's been gathered together in the community under one umbrella, streetepistemology.com. Brought to you by Street Epistemology International, who also bring you the SE podcast for those of you who like your street epistemology stuck directly in your ear without all this silly faffing about with video. Thank you all for coming to these to today's lots and lots of reverse and Steelman and vanilla and all the different ways and things that we did today. Oh, I messed it up. I broke it. Good. If you would like to be a guest on my show, yes, please. Check my calendar. You'll find it in the description, and you can find yourself a free spot. Tell me, and just the answer is pretty much yes. All I ask is that you be polite, articulate, willing to show your face, and willing to talk in SE or about SE or adjacent to SE, anything as long as it's SE. In that case, I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.